What's up, everyone? Welcome to another week of XFL Weekly, where we sit around and hang out and talk about all things XFL weekly. I am your co-host, Kyle Krajewski, joined by my other lovely co-host, Zach Cole. Zach, how are you today?
I'm doing good, man. Another exciting week of XFL football in the books. We saw the toppling of a king. We saw some basement dwellers have some high flying action. It was a fun week. A lot to talk about.
I think that was an excellent way to put it. That was beautiful. But before we get into all of that, we are XFL Weekly. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at XFL_weekly. If you are listening to us in podcast form, you can find us on YouTube, watch our beautiful faces chat about XFL at XFL Weekly there. Or if you're watching our beautiful faces, you can listen to just our beautiful voices wherever you listen to podcasts at XFL Weekly. You'll find us around there. And then I post on TikTok once in a while at XFL Weekly, and Zach loves it every time I send him a TikTok idea, and he's just like, "Let's do it."
It's good stuff. I mean, it just seems like every time, I don't know whether it's just the XFL or whether it's sports in general, but any trend that's happening on TikTok just seems to translate seamlessly to something that's happening in the XFL.
Yeah, I mean, all we got to do is throw Pedro Pascal on anything XFL related, and it works. But find us there, XFL Weekly, basically wherever you look for or search anything, and we're there. Now, let's get into it. Some quick notes and news. John Trey Kirkland, sadly, wide receiver for the Roughnecks, is unfortunately estimated to be out for the season with a chest injury. He was on pace for a fantastic receiving season. Currently, I mean, after missing most of last week's game, is now sixth in the receiving yards with four receiving touchdowns. And he's going to be missed. I was really excited watching him play. He had some fantastic catches.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it was upsetting to see him go down. I mean, people were kind of starting to question whether or not he was the most NFL ready wide receiver in the XFL. It was all kind of going right for him, and that's not to say that this injury is going to completely dash any of those hopes and dreams. If anything, it just might push them back a little bit. I think this dude's special, and like you mentioned, Kyle, he's projected to be out for the rest of the season. I don't really have all the details about his injury outside of it just being a chest injury. So who knows? Maybe we'll see him around playoff time if all things go right. If not, you know what? Either there's always next season or he can come out for a practice squad in the NFL or something. This won't be the end of Kirkland. We'll see him again soon.
not at all. And I could picture that season long injury kind of being a very protective boundary, or I guess protective limit, where they're just
Absolutely.
saying season long just because it's probably the safe end to stay out that long.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely,
Next bit
definitely,
of
definitely.
next bit of news: QB for the Orlando Guardians. We talked a little bit about this a few weeks ago, but Quentin Dormady was uh, wrongfully accused of sharing the team's playbook with opposing teams, and it was a week-long process that was just all over the place. But basically, it came out that he didn't. There was no wrongdoing, and he was taken off the excluded list. And he came back to play, was activated, and man, did he show up. The Guardians unfortunately did not win because of his play. However, his play was certainly not the reason they lost. He
I
he
think you're putting it lightly there, man. He threw the crap out of the ball. To give you some sort of tune of what he did, he went 22 of 25 in this game for 256 yards. And if you're doing the mental math at home, that's an 88% completion rate, which is just absolutely absurd. To go a full football game at any level, even high school, and throw 88% completion is just fantastic. So it was cool to kind of see him get back on his feet a little bit and maybe give this this Guardians team a little bit of stability. So we'll see.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see that he didn't start the game. Paxton Lynch kind of went out there and had two or three duds of a first few drives, and so they were like, "All right, Dormady, show us what you got," and he showed it.
The Guardians just seem to have the worst identity crisis right now. They don't know whether they want to like it's probably killing them because I think they see the upside in Francois. They see, some of those rushing performances from Paxton Lynch, and then Dormady comes out here and lights it up passing the ball. Like what do you do? Like it almost feels like a lose 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 for them. And I guess their record's kind of indicating that too. Except it's lose, 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 lose if you're keeping track.
Yeah. So the Guardians are 0-5, and you're right. I think it kind of has to do something with that identity crisis that they're kind of suffering.
I think once they kind of get it together and they decide what they're going to be, I think they'll start seeing a little more positive results. It's so tough to go into the week and not know who's going to be leading your offense week in and week out. There's kind of a saying amongst football coaches: if you got more than one quarterback, you don't have any quarterbacks. So until that guy steps up, I think they're kind of going to be in this identity crisis situation.
Yeah. Hopefully it's Dormady because he showed out,
Mhm.
and I quite honestly think he deserves that starting spot.
Agreed. Agreed.
So speaking of last week, Zach, let's do a quick week 5 preview or
Let's
recap, I
run
should
through
say.
it. Well, we have another fun section coming up after this, so we're going to keep this week short and brief. The Thursday night game was one of the marquee matchups of the week. It was nice and late on a Thursday evening. It was between the Roughnecks and they were out visiting the Seattle Sea Dragons, and the Sea Dragons pulled off the upset. They won that game 21-14 over the Roughnecks. It was kind of shocking amongst the XFL community. I mean, this is a team that's been 9-0 since 2020, if you consider it that way, and they tripped up and lost their first game here against the Sea Dragons. Now, the Sea Dragons kind of balled out too. I mean, their defense was just stellar in this game.
MVP of
And
the game, in my
yeah,
opinion.
I mean, blocking punts, turnovers, anything they needed. And it also kind of brought the Roughnecks back down to earth a little bit. I mean, I know the Roughnecks have won a couple games, but I mean, they've beaten the Guardians, they've beaten, let's see who else, the Brahmas, who
The
are who
Guardians
are down
twice.
towards the bot. Yeah. So are the Roughnecks for real? I mean, that's kind of the question that's going to be determined here. Or against some good competition or some better competition, they kind of came down to earth. So it was exciting to see the Sea Dragons kind of pull off an upset, and I think kind of legitimize themselves a little bit too um, in the process of doing that. So that was the Thursday night game. What do you have to tell me about the first Saturday game here?
Oh, I just gotta mention, there were definitely some comments on our last video calling out that the Roughnecks were playing nobodies. So for us to be hyping them up, that people were disgusted.
Well,
And I think this game kind of knocked them down a peg in, I guess, the XFL landscape. And I guess now we see who they truly are. So thank you for calling out that they've been playing nobody. So thank you, listeners.
Well, in fairness, and I guess in rebuttal here, because I think that this is the week that I'm planting my flag as an official Roughnecks fan. So
There it
g-
is.
get at me, bros. The Roughnecks have scored the most points and have given up the fewest points. Again, that could be a result of playing poor competition, but they're a good team. You can't completely delegitimize what they're doing, just because they're playing poor competition. They can't help their schedule, and I think that the 4-1 indicates that they are still a pretty good team.
All right. Speaking of favorite teams, I'm glad you were able to stake your flag into someone and you had to wait for them to lose before jumping on a bandwagon. But DC Defenders come out and take down the St. Louis Battlehawks in St. Louis, which I think is a feat in itself. But that was just all on the, I guess you should say, the legs of one man, because Abram Smith just dominated.
What a
He's
guy!
the story of this game. Abram Smith came out here running back for the Defenders, ran for 218 rushing yards, most rushing yards in a game this season by far. And more, I'm looking at the rushing leaders in the XFL. Other than Brian Hill and Morgan Ellison, nobody even has 218 yards on the season. Uh, so he ran more than all but two people in one game that have done, and it's incredible. He had a huge game.
Remarkable. Yeah.
Two long touchdowns. I think his first touchdown of the day, he had three. First touchdown was a 62-yard rush, and he just broke like 4 or 5 tackles. Just brushed them off like nothing. 62 yards, and then that was the longest rush in the XFL this season. Comes back after a 2-yard touchdown and runs for 70 yards. Comes out with a 70-yard rushing touchdown, and just dominated. So 3 touchdowns, 18 yards, just a monster of a game.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say this legitimized the defenders as being, it kills me to say, but probably the best offense in the XFL. And we talked about it last week. Until someone steps up and says you cannot run the ball against us, they're going to continue to be the best offense because that's just their identity right now. And it's kind of one of those "f you, come and stop us" mentalities, and I love it. They're playing great football right now.
They have almost twice as many rushing yards, the defenders as a whole, almost twice as many rushing yards as the next team. And that's the Sea Dragons with 449. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. It's not the Sea Dragons. It's the Battlehawks. But Battlehawks lost in this game, but I will say Battlehawks may still be a top 3 team. Just because they lost to the best team does not mean that they're bad.
Right.
Battlehawks came in, they played a fantastic game on their own. They just could not stop Abram Smith. But man, Battlehawks, in my eyes, a top 3 team, and I think defenders are that number 1. So
The Battlehawks have also played a brutal schedule so far. I mean, they've had the Defenders twice. They've played the Brahmas. They've played looking at the schedule here, the Renegades. And who else am I missing? Regardless, they've played a really tough schedule. So even with their current record of 3-2, they're, I think, better than that for sure.
I think
Um,
so too. I mean, if your 2 losses are to the undefeated team, uh, I think you kind of get a pass.
yeah, definitely.
Merge that into one. You're 3-1.
All right, so looking ahead to the next game, Kyle, we had the Guardians visiting the Vipers, which we weren't really sure what we were going to see out of that game. It was either going to be super entertaining or a huge dud, and it was super entertaining. The game did not disappoint. The Vipers came out victorious to get their first win of the season at 35-32 final score. So for all of you who had the over on your bingo card, for 65 total points, that was a smash there. Um, in this game, it was a kind of a back and forth affair, and Dormady, we talked about it already, balled out, absolutely balled out. Cody Latimer had a beautiful touchdown straight
Oh
down the
yeah.
middle of the field. He's kind of seeing a little bit of a comeback in the XFL too, former NFL wide receiver. So there just really was, it was an interesting game. Luis Perez was solid for the Vipers, obviously leading them to the win. And I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. Jeff Badet also leads the league with 5 touchdowns now, which is pretty impressive as well. I mean, a former SEC prospect. I feel like we don't mention his name enough. I know we've said it maybe once before, but I think he's solidifying his name in the ranks of some of the best wide receivers in the league, up there with the Pearsons and the Kirklands of the XFL.
For sure. Yeah, I love me some Badet. I think he's starting to emerge. I mean, with Perez's kind of outstanding play as well. But I think these two are kind of in line and kind of gearing up for a great second half of the season.
Yeah, definitely. And this game, it was kind of cool to see that the two teams got to shoot out a little bit, and um, it was good to see some offense for two teams that don't really have a lot of bright spots right now. I still think the Vipers are a good chunk better than the Guardians, even though they're both in the basement of the XFL right now. But that's the Guardians are starting to figure it out, and like we talked about before, they need to come up with an identity.
Yep. And then coming from a game that had nothing but offense, straight into a game that had nothing but defense, where the Arlington Renegades beat out the San Antonio Brahmas 12-10. We went into this game kind of expecting it to be a defensive showdown. These are two of the best defenses, but also kind of two of the worst offenses. just kind of coming together and clashing. And I'm not going to get too much into it because it was just straight up defense facing defense. And we get to see the exact two teams face off against each other this week, which is a little bit of fun that I guess a short schedule kind of allows. So.
Well, it would just be perfect and poetic if the score of this game was 12-10, but flipped the opposite way and the Brahmas came out on top. Uh,
And I would not be surprised.
I wouldn't either. I think these two teams are just pretty even. I think that they're both, like you mentioned, very low end offenses, but very high end defenses. And that's what we saw from the score. So, again, on your bingo cards, if you had the under, smash.
And do it again this week because I'm not expecting anything different. All right. Now, that was week 5, and that means we are now at the mid part way of the season, the mid season. 5 weeks in, 5 weeks left to go in the regular season. So we're gonna do a little bit of a quick look at mid-season awards. We're not gonna crown any mid-season award winners. Just kind of saying who our top guys are at MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, and Defensive Player of the Year. Just kind of highlighting a few guys that are probably in the discussion for that award moving forward, probably towards the end of the season, just
Yeah.
based on what we've seen for now.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I think these we would say are probably like our favorite 2 or 3 guys at each of these different awards. So the first award we're going to take a look at here is going to be the MVP conversation. I mean, what a place to start. Obviously, the kind of conception is that, or preconception is that the MVP goes to a quarterback in most football leagues. But I want to mention a guy that's not a quarterback to start off with. I want to mention Ja'Cour Peterson of the Seattle Sea Dragons, who is first in catches, not only first in catches, but also first in plays over 20 yards and leads the league in receiving yards. Not to mention, he also has a touchdown to pair with it. Unfortunately, it's only one, but I mean, when you got guys like Josh Gordon stealing touchdowns from you and Ellison stealing touchdowns from you up there, it's it is what it is. But I think Pearson's having an outstanding season. I think like we talked about, him and Kirkland and Badet all need to be kind of mentioned in those top tier wide receivers. But Pearson's separating himself as kind of the cream of the crop, I think. So he's going to go ahead and be my first mention as an MVP candidate.
Yeah, I think Jack War's got something going, something cooking this season. But
Hmm.
I'm going to mention a guy that I already highlighted earlier in this episode, Abram Smith, running back for the Defenders. I think the dude is just on fire and will continue to. He was the number one skill position pick in the draft for a reason. He has the most yards most yards for scrimmage with 466, league leader in rushing with 432 yards, 5.1 yards per carry, and 4 rushing touchdowns. Dude is an animal and is the leading rusher on the most run happy offense. This dude is just balling out, and
Yeah.
he's kind of my MVP. One of the guys I like to see in the conversation for MVP.
And it stinks that kind of the preconception is that it does go to a quarterback in most football leagues because I think I think Abram Smith is the biggest difference maker for any team, and I feel like that's what the MVP should be. You kind of look at the NFL, think like Derrick Henry if you took him off of the Titans, that kind of thing. Abram Smith is just a monster for the Defenders. But looking at quarterback, because that's most likely where it's probably going to end up. AJ McCarron is probably the leader for the quarterback position right now in the MVP race. If for nothing else, for just being kind of like a winner. We mentioned he lost those 2 games to the Defenders, but I mean, losing twice to the best team in the league is nothing to turn your nose up at. He leads the league in passing touchdowns, and he's third in passing yardage. And he's also got a pretty high completion percentage at second in the league. So he's doing what he needs to do, and we've seen him lead a bunch of game-winning drives. He's just kind of the man when they need someone to step up, and I think that's probably a good indicator of being a solid MVP candidate. So I would say AJ McCarron's probably the best quarterback candidate right now for MVP.
Yeah, and I think behind McCarron, I mean, we can't ignore Ben DiNucci and what he's doing up there. I just think McCarron's got a few more touchdowns and DiNucci's got a few more interceptions. But who knows? This might be a completely different race in 3 weeks.
Yeah, right. And I was going to say 5 weeks, the second half of the season can make all the difference. I mean, not to draw comparisons to the NFL, but Jalen Hurts was the MVP through week 12, 13, and then he ended up with that injury, and we saw that flip to Patrick Mahomes pretty quickly. So anything can happen, realistically.
Absolutely. And then next award or next kind of category here, Offensive Player of the Year. Uh, Two guys to highlight here: Abram Smith and Jacquor Pearson. Already mentioned, they're two guys killing it at their position. But I really want to highlight Jeff Badette, wide receiver for the Vegas Vipers. We touched on him a little bit earlier as well, but he's currently the league leader in receiving and just offensive touchdowns as a whole. That's rushing and receiving touchdowns combined. But he has 5 there and just is doing really well. He kind of had a slower-ish start to the season, but I mean, these past few weeks, he's killing it, and I think he's on a trend to be in this conversation, and that's kind of why we're highlighting him here.
Yeah, it's realistically the OPOY kind of comes down to those guys that maybe aren't quarterbacks, so aren't in consideration for the MVP. So I think having two receivers and a running back here is perfect. And you mentioned we talked about Pearson already. We talked about Abram Smith, but Badette is also definitely in the conversation. He may be a little overshadowed because he's on the Vipers, who haven't seen as much success this season, but still a very, very good candidate for the OPOY. Looking at DPOY, there's a couple guys that come to mind. First off is Michael Joseph, corner for the DC Defenders. The Defenders are just a solid team, top to bottom, and it really wouldn't surprise me if we saw the Defensive Player of the Year come from this team as well. He's got 4 interceptions. 2 of those interceptions were for touchdowns, 6 pass breakups, and 21 tackles. I mean, just a jack of all trades, really, really impacting the DC defense. Um, Another guy who kind of gets a little overlooked because he's probably on not a great team. Well, I know he's not on a great team. Is Max Roberts, the edge rusher for the Vegas Vipers, who's got 5 sacks, which is pretty impressive, and 2 forced fumbles on the season, and just really kind of generates a lot of QB pressure for this defense. And then the final guy is Donald Payne, another corner for the Arlington Renegades, who surprisingly at the corner position, it's not something you see very often, but leads the league in tackles with 38 tackles, and he also has a half sack and a fumble recovery to chime in and kind of bolster that stat line. So 3 guys. We were talking a little bit before the show. It's a little more difficult to kind of pick out a defensive standout than it is an offensive standout. I mean, we talked about the Brahmas and the Renegades as being good defenses, but they're good team defenses, so it's a little harder to like pinpoint one guy specifically out of one of those or the other. So yeah, so those are my 3 guys. Once again, that's Michael Joseph from the Defenders, Max Roberts from the Vipers, and Donald Payne from the Renegades.
All right, Zach. Beautifully put.
Thank you.
Now let's move on to week 6. And just to keep it, just because we like to keep these shows short, we'll keep this kind of like the quick preview for next week, kind of a little bit short, just this week, just because we dove into this mid-season awards. So
Definitely. Yep.
hopefully that pays off for you, the listener, and the viewer. So week 6, we kick off Saturday, and we're done with Thursday night games, Zach. No more Thursday night games this season.
It makes me a little bit sad, but I was also really, really contemplating my life when I stayed up to watch like half of the Thursday night game this week, and I had to go to work the next morning. For those guys who don't know, I teach, so we're waking up at 6 a.m. the next morning after staying up till past midnight the night before. It wasn't great. It was a rough turnaround, but I'm fired up for a Monday night game. It's making me look forward to a Monday for once. So
yeah, so that's at the end of the week. So we're not there yet, dude.
I'm jumping the gun. I'm getting fired up.
So we've got week 6 kicks off Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern with the Sea Dragons sitting at 3-2, facing off the Guardians at 0-5.
Hmm.
This it's going to be an interesting one because I think these are two teams kind of on. I don't know. I was gonna say two ends of the spectrum, but I feel like both teams are kind of picking things up. So
I
maybe
agree. I agree.
I
Both upstart, both putting up some points recently, both doing things we didn't expect out of them. So who knows? Who
I
knows?
think the one
And
X factor.
The Sea Dragons are leaving Seattle too, which is a
Yeah,
factor. They were in Seattle this past week and the week before, so that's back to back weeks at home. Now they got to go on the road, long road trip all the way down to Orlando in the Guardian Dome.
in the lovely Guardian Dome, but I mean, Danucci had a post game conference talking about how the Sea Dragons, those back to back weeks in Seattle, have been taking a toll just on their bodies with those like that internal clock or whatever.
Hmm.
Now they get to go to the complete opposite coast and face off against the Guardians. But I was going to say the X factor here, I think, is the Seattle defense is just cooking. I think they've hit another gear in the past few weeks, and I think the Guardians are really going to have to step up if they want to compete in this one.
Hmm.
And I'm not sure that they can, but who knows? I Dormady looked fantastic last week. Who's to say he can't this week?
Definitely, definitely. I'll go ahead. I'll let you introduce all the games. I'll just chime in here if
All
I feel
right,
I have anything to add.
you got it, dude. And then next game, Saturday night ish, I should say. 7 p.m. We've got the St. Louis Battlehawks taking a trip, leaving St. Louis to head on down to Vegas, facing off the Vipers. Seahawks our Battlehawks are 3-2. Vipers are 1-4. The Vipers hope to capitalize on their first win last week,
Hmm.
and the Battlehawks are looking for a bounce back week, which they haven't had. They've had before. They get the fantastic win the next week, and I think they're in line to do the same thing. But Vipers may have just also got a win under their belt. Maybe things are about to reshuffle here.
Yeah, Luis Perez has been balling. I don't really want to write the Vipers off.
No,
They've kind of caught my attention recently. So, yeah, but I at the same time, I think the Battlehawks will definitely bounce back. Whether that bounce back results in a win or they struggle against the Vipers, we'll see. We'll see.
yeah, and it's weird to say bounce back because it's not like they had a super bad week last week. They just
No.
the defenders just played incredibly well on the ground.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you talk about their last 3 weeks and they're 1-2. It's like, oh, but like they've played good football. They just played
Yeah.
a really, really good football team. So I guess bounce back maybe means I guess getting the win column. Maybe I'm subconsciously telling myself what I think here.
Maybe. So, and then next game, Sunday. Sunday at 3 p.m. We've got a lone football game on Football Sunday, kind of placed in the middle at 3 p.m. How do you
The
feel about this?
rematch. It's the
The
rematch. I'm
rematch.
fired. It's so good. It needed its own day. It's the Brahmas and the Renegades. The Brahmas are going to San Antonio. Oh, for the second week. No,
I
no,
was
I
gonna
lied. I'm
no,
sorry.
yeah,
San
they
Antonio
were
is going to Arlington. Sorry
yes.
about that.
Yeah, you
All
got
right.
it.
Got that right now. Yeah, I expect. We talked about it earlier. I expect low scoring again. Neither of these teams seem to really have an identity on offense. Their identity on offense is their defense, ironically. So I think it's going to stay low scoring. I wouldn't. I really don't have a prediction on which way it's going to go because I feel like it's all it takes is one extra field goal, one extra conversion of some kind, 2 3 point conversion, and that could be the swing point in this game. So that's really all I have to add to it.
I think that was beautifully put. I mean, we're seeing the same game that we saw last week, just played in a different stadium.
Yep.
I I hope it's the same game. That was some great defensive football. I certainly don't mind good defensive football.
No,
Uh,
no, it's kind of refreshing every once in a while. It makes for a really different game than you're used to, but it's equally as exciting.
I think to be the lone football game on a Sunday though, I might want a little bit more points, but I'll live. I'll live if I see a touchdown or two.
Yeah, definitely. And I think another point is this is a Texas showdown here.
Yeah,
Only 200 and some miles in between the two of them, so not a lot of travel going on here. So that's not really a factor. I think it should be a pretty good game. I'm looking
I
forward
think
to
they're
it.
staying because the hub is in Arlington, so I think
Mm,
they're. This is basically a home team, home game. in huge quotations for both teams.
Right, right.
And then wrapping up the week, Monday night. Zach, I'm not going to say it's a house divided,
There are lines in the sand right now, and
but
we
it's
are on
it's
either
it's an
side of that line.
it's an XFL weekly house divided. Uh, we've got the Roughnecks heading up to DC to face off against the Defenders. 4-1 versus 5-0. Top two teams in the North and the South divisions. Oh boy, this is just this beer snake is going to be the largest beer snake we've seen in a while.
I'll tell you, the crowd at this game is probably going to be awesome. I feel like DC is really going to show out for it. It's unfortunate though because they're going to have to show out for a loss. I think both
Oh,
teams are going to be 5-1 after this game. Call me crazy, but call me a homer, I guess, is what I'm going for here. So it's going to be a fun game, and I guess that's why earlier I couldn't wait to talk about this game. It's the I think can we crown it the XFL Weekly Game of the Week? Kind of
yeah,
give it
this is for sure. I mean, I think even if these weren't our favorite two teams, I think this was going to be the game of the week.
definitely.
But I think just kind of having a little bit of extra heart in this game for both sides, for sure, is this makes it the XFL Weekly Game of the Week.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm fired up.
Yeah, I just can't wait to see Abram Smith and Teamu just run all over this team.
Go for 300 plus rushing.
If you're listening, commenters, please just comment how bad the teams that the Roughnecks have played are, and that their 4 wins mean nothing.
All right, all right, all right.
All right. So now that we've got those quick intros to the games, let's talk about our picks. You had actually you had a fantastic week in the pick'em, and we'll
Yeah,
get to that later.
absolutely.
But the picks dead even again. Yeah, I mean, you went 4-4. I went 3-5. I'm on a 3-5 tear right now. I got to get out of this.
I am one pick at a time catching up to you. It's a slow, brutal way to catch you, but I'm getting there.
I'm still ahead of you. My 7-1 week one is kind of really helping out, but
It definitely is. Definitely, it's kind of carrying you, but that's okay. That's all right. We don't
that's all
judge.
right. All right, week six picks. Let's do this.
All right,
Sea
well,
Dragons
taking
at Guardians.
Sea Dragons at the Guardians. The line is 8.5 in the favor of the Sea Dragons right now. So the Sea Dragons are minus 8.5, and the over under is at 42 points. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say that the Guardians are going to cover this 8.5
Oh,
line
in the Guardian Dome.
in the Guardian Dome. I think that they're running hot right now. Do I think they're going to win? No, but do I think that they're going to keep the game close? Yes. So I'm going to go with the Guardians plus 8.5, and I will go ahead and I will say that this game. Um, I'm going to take the under on this game.
Ooh.
I think that it's going to be relatively low scoring. We saw that the Sea Dragons defense is improving, and I'd like to think that it's going to be a close-ish game. So um, that's what I'm going with.
I'm going to go two opposites.
You're making
I
up
think
ground on me.
I think Seattle has both the offense and the defense to keep this game in reach, or I guess out of reach for the Guardians.
Yeah.
I think the offense is just going to score, and the defense is going to prevent the Guardians from scoring. I'm sure that I think what we saw last week from Dormady, it's hopefully we see some points from their side. I'd really like to see that because I think that team has a lot going for them if they can get things rolling. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Seattle minus 8.5 and over 42.
I definitely can't knock that. I This game kind of made me rack my brain a little bit as I was trying to make my picks here, but I respect either way. And I to be truthful, I don't know what to expect from this game. I think we could see a defensive slugfest, or we could see a blowout or a shootout. So
I
who
think that's the
knows?
beauty of all of these games.
Yeah.
Every week, man, it's like, yeah, this could be anything goes,
Well,
and
absolutely no one expected 65 total points between the Vipers and the Guardians this week. I don't think anyone saw that coming.
no, that was a shock, but a welcome one.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Looking at the next game here, the Battlehawks are visiting the Vipers. That is a Saturday 7 p.m. game. The line here is -3 in favor of the Battlehawks, and the over under is at 44 points. I'm going to go ahead and take the Battlehawks -3. I think that they are a substantially better team than the Vipers, and I think that that's going to show in this game. Even though they're 3-2, and the Vipers are sitting at 1-4 right now, I think that the Battlehawks are very, very good. And the over under is at 44 points. I'm going to go ahead and take the over on this game. We've seen from Luis Perez a couple weeks in a row here that he can ball. He can put up some points. And I think that the Battlehawks are a pretty safe lock for 20-ish points every single week. So we've seen them put up 24, 28, 20. So I think that I'm pretty happy with the over under at 44. So that's where I'm going.
Yeah, I am gonna follow on both. Um, I think, like you said, Seattle or it's not Seattle. I see the STL. I think St. Louis is gonna win quite demandedly. -3. Give me the St. Louis -3. I think they've got enough in them to kind of retake the claim, win by 5+, honestly.
Mhm.
And we've seen both sides know how to score. Both teams, you said both teams know how to score. Multiple weeks, 20+ points. I think the Vipers had 18 2 weeks ago. Either way, I both of them can get to that 20-point range, and they will. So give me the over 44. I think you said it. Luis Perez can score. AJ McCarron can and will. It's going to be points scored, and Battlehawks going to win -3.
Beautiful. The next game that we have here is our lone Sunday game, and that's between the Brahmas and the Renegades. The Brahmas are visiting the Renegades. The Renegades are 3-point favorites, which is kind of interesting when you look at last week when they only won by 2 points. Something to kind of take note of. So the over under is at 33 right now. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the Brahmas +3, and I'm going to take the under 33 points in this game. I think that neither of these teams have an offensive identity yet, which we mentioned before. And I think that as a result of that, we are going to see another defensive battle. I don't really see, Kyle, I'm not foreshadowing your pick here. I don't really see why it would make sense to take the Renegades -3 when they only won by 2 points last week. Uh, I get it. I know it's not going to be a direct translation over to the next week, but I guess maybe that home field advantage is kind of coming into play here, maybe picking up that extra point. But I'm going to take San Antonio +3. And I think they could win that game outright and the under as well.
Zach, little fun tidbit here. Arlington's, let's see, 1, 2, 3 wins are by an average of 1.75 points. Week 1, they won by 2. Week 3, they won by 1.
That's insane.
And week 5, they won by 2.
That is insane.
So they know how to play very close, and
Yep.
because of that, I'm following both of your picks. San Antonio Brahmas +3, I should say. I think it's just going to be that close of a game. I'm not going to say who's going to win, but two teams that can't score offensively and two teams that know how to keep it close and low scoring. So give me the +3 and under 33.
It's just one of those games you look.
33, man.
Yeah, right? And we're taking the under. How about it?
Pretty convincingly too. It's not even like, man.
It's not even that's a close line. It's like no under. I think even at 30, I'd be pretty confident like under.
Yeah, I think if you get into the 20s and it's just like,
Yeah.
all right, now you're
Yeah,
really
right.
pushing it here.
All right. The last game, our marquee
Game
matchup
of
for
the
the
week.
week. Monday night, 7 p.m. Roughnecks are shipping up to DC to take on the Defenders. The Defenders are 2.5 point favorites in this game, so the line is DC minus 2.5, and the over under is at 42 total points right now. Same over under as the Sea Dragons and Guardians, ironically. In this game, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to take the
Shit.
Roughnecks plus 2.5. I think, call me crazy, the Roughnecks win this game outright. So giving me 2 points on top of what I believe already, on top of my fanship, give me 2.5 every single day. Let's go Roughnecks. And then taking a look at the over under. Oh shoot, I really don't know. I'm uh, I'm just gonna default. Having fun. I don't have any guess on. No, I'm joking. I'm going to take the over on this. I know that both teams have solid defenses, but both teams also have extremely solid offenses. Looking at week 4, I mean, the Roughnecks put up 44, the Defenders put up 32. The week prior to that, the Defenders put up 34, the Roughnecks put up 22, 23. Like these teams can score. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that the over is going to hit in this game. And I actually could see a scenario where we get a little bit of a shootout going on. And I would love nothing more on my Monday night.
Yeah, I mean a Monday night shootout between the marquee game of the week. Give it to me. However, give me DC minus 2.5. You saw it coming.
I it had to happen. I get it.
It's gonna happen. I think DC's defense, the DC Defenders defense, that's a tongue twister. I think they know how to keep these games in reach. They like to keep them kind of close, but it in a range that they can win. It's just like, all right, cool, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Until like the final drive or two. So give me Defenders minus 2.5, and then give me the over as well. Again, I think both teams are going to score. DC on the ground and Roughnecks probably through the air.
Yeah.
And
I like that.
it's gonna be. This is me partially rooting for a fun shootout, but also I expect it to be. I think
Kyle,
it's
with you
gonna be a good one.
mentioning the through the air receiving, I just real quick for the Roughnecks, I want to mention because I don't think we touched on it earlier. Even with John Trey Kirkland going down and being out for the rest of the season, presumably, Travell Harris and Deontay Burnett are both two really high level wide
Yeah,
receivers for the Houston Roughnecks as well. And Cedric Bird is also not too far down the list. I mean, each of them have ish 200 yards on the season, which is definitely nothing to turn your nose up at. So they're going to be just fine. And they made I don't know the guy's name off the top of my head, but they did make a signing as a reactionary move to Kirkland being out for the rest of the season. They brought another wide receiver on board, so they did find a replacement for him. So this offense should still kick or should still continue kicking through the air, even without their top guy outside.
yeah. I mean, oh, yeah. Brandon Silvers knows how to sling that ball. I mean,
Yes, he
11
does.
touchdowns,
Absolutely.
tied with AJ McCarron, league lead, second in receiving or passing yards.
Absolutely.
It's a team that knows how to throw versus a team that knows how to run, and
Hmm.
I'm excited to see that, especially on Monday night. Let's see it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, so that was week 6, and you can't ignore week 6 without the pick 'em. Zach, I
We got
want
to
to hear
talk
you.
about this.
I gotta hear you talk about. Hold on, wait, hold on. Before we go into it, the Pick'em XFL has their own like Pick'em league, free to join, and it's not like you have to join week 1 and you miss out on it. It's just like you battle each week.
Mhm.
There is season long like leaderboard, but you can make up ground any week if you're that good. We have our own XFL Weekly Pick'em League. Information will be in the description. I'll touch more on that. Zach just had a bogus week this week, and I want to hear his discussion on it.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy week for me, right? I checked, I logged in on I don't know. I guess it was Monday after the games had finished and the week had finalized. And I looked, I thought, oh man, I have a lot of points. And then I looked a little bit further into it, and I was actually 18th in the whole entire XFL pick'em, like across everyone who's doing it. Period.
Thousands of us.
Yeah, thousands and thousands of people. I actually came in 18th this week, and I was pretty fired up about it. And that also then catapulted me into first place in our little XFL pick'em pool here, which was which made me feel pretty good too. So I finally passed my man Squirrely. It's life is good right now. That's all I'll say. So I hit my parlay. I went 7 out of 8 in my picks this week. The only one that screwed me up, let me see here. I have it, is the Jeff Badette. He killed me. I thought he was going to be I thought he was going to be under
I
on
was
his
going to say,
receiving
you
yards this week.
probably had low hopes for him. He
I
showed you.
did. I did, and he balled out. So you know what? Shout out to him, and I'm okay with that loss, even though I still ended up in first place in this. So I had to gloat a little bit. I don't want to be too over. Actually, you know what? I lied. I just checked, and we have a new guy in the league here. Babar, something. I don't know, but he's 20 points ahead of me. So that's the first time
Cool.
I've seen that name. But shout out to that guy. I mean, we got someone that jumped up into first after just recently joining. So good stuff.
Heck yeah. That's what I love to see. So, yeah, as you can see, you can win it even though you've just joined. You've got plenty of ground to cover. You just got to have some pretty good weeks.
Yeah, he had a 1450 this week, which is just baller.
Wow. That, with that being said, join our Pick'em League. Information will be in the description. You just kind of make over under picks that the XFL kind of throws together there on their own.
Hmm.
For example, this week's one of them is Vegas Vipers wide receiver Jeff Badette averages 68 yards per game, while St. Louis Battlehawks wide receiver Hakeem Butler averages 67 yards per game. Will Badette and Butler combine for over under 135 and a half receiving yards in their game?
Oh,
Mean-
see, without knowing that question, I was automatically guessing who's going to have more receiving yards, and in that case, I would have told the world go with Badette because I think the Vipers are going to be playing catch up. But you know what? They threw a curveball in there in the end and did a combined total. So I
The
love that. I
one
think that's
the
awesome.
one last week was like these two coaches had jersey number 67 and
Yeah, that was awesome.
68 and when they played in the NFL. Will the winning coach be over or under 67 and a half or have worn over under?
That was a great question. I like that one a lot.
But that's fun. It's really cool. We shout out some dudes that beat us out in our own XFL Weekly League. Zach's been challenging Uncle Squirrely for weeks now, and finally jumped over him in the rankings.
Finally backed up all my trash talk.
So join. It's fun. It's cool. It doesn't
It
cost
is.
you anything, and it's just it's fun. Why not throw some free footballs into a thing?
Yeah.
And we'll call you. We'll shout you out if you do better than us, which you most likely will.
We're just two guys pretending like
We're
we know
just
what we're
two
talking
dudes.
about here.
We're just pretending here. We know a little bit of this stuff. So give ourselves a little bit of credit.
Yeah, a little bit, definitely.
All right. Well, that'll be it for this week. Zach, it was a pleasure chatting with you. And listeners, I apologize if this is longer than it usually is. We just have fun chatting XFL.
We do. We get a little carried away. It's good stuff.
So either way, thank you for tuning in. It was a pleasure, Zach. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Always, brother. Always.
And everybody else, thank you. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Tell me in the poll that I post what your answer is. I don't know what the poll is yet, but it'll be cool. Either way, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.